Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we are go Today we are going to talk about OAuth and Google Drive and how to actually use OAuth and JWT tokens using Google Drive and Google using Google in general. Like when you use this approach, you should not be only using it for Google Drive. You should actually be able to use like any service that Google is providing, like Google Maps, for example, or Google email or wherever, Gmail, like wherever you want to. And if you have a dash view actually and you're following my channel, I have already done a video about that. So I already have a video about mastering OAuth JWT, a practical guide with Spotify integration. And I actually added I added this is a mobile special. So this is actually how you should do it for mobile. And I will actually do this video for two reasons. First of all, it's good practice to have more than one example because OAuth it's actually not a simple thing to do. You can actually see this video; it's almost 1 hour. And the second thing is actually uh, there is a huge difference between using OAuth in the mobile version and web. So I'll actually do right now what I want to do is first of all, I want to give you another example of OAuth using Google. And the second thing that I want to actually give you a web version of this OAuth approach. And of course, if you want to convert this to a mobile version, you have to actually combine the two videos. And you have to actually use cloud functions for when the user authenticate your app. But we'll go into that in a bit. So let me just show you quickly, first of all, how this works. So let's go to this over here. This is my simple demo web app version of my Flow project. If I actually load it in the start page, you can actually probably see it for a few seconds that it was loaded the home page, which is actually, you can actually see this button OAuth Google Drive, but it is actually redirecting me to this page called Google Drive. And that is actually because I already have access to this page, which means that I have approved this app to use my credentials, and I have an access token and a refresh token. But I'll show you how you can do that. It's very simple. You just press a button and then you authorize the app to use this refresh token and access token and refresh token. And then you actually use the refresh token to get the data. And here I have a very simple like approach to test if this thing is working. And I'm just querying one of my files in my Google Drive. This is the ID of the file. This is a folder actually, and it's called FF demo is the name of the folder. And we have this drive, and then that it says it's a file. And then we have what I did is I'll show you how you can do that, but let me show first a demo. So I did a search for folders by name. So what my idea is to search folders, and then if I found a folder, I want to see the content of the folder. So in my case particular, I can search for FF, which means photo flow, and then I can search and then I can see all the folders over here. I mean, it's a little bit, the UI, it's a little bit ugly, sorry about that, but I'm not a UI guy, as you already know, guys. So, of course, you can do it much better, much prettier. This is only for demo purposes. So, you can actually see the folder. The first folder is FF demo, and this is actually the folder. And you can actually see the ID is the same as this one over here. And then we have this folder, and this folder. And if I want to see the content of the folder, you can actually see that I can hover and click over this folder, but here I cannot click it. And that's because actually I made this field selectable. So if you make the field selectable, unfortunately, you are using the ability to actually select the not select, but to click on the text. So you can actually see it either if you want to, you can click on it or select it. And selecting, when you're selecting it, it's actually overriding the clicking thing. So you have to click either away from this text, or I can click it over here, which is the dash. And then if I click over it, it's actually running another query, API request actually, and it's listing all my files that are inside this folder. And now I was actually wanted to list like a JPEG, sorry, a PNG file, for example. And if I click on the PNG, you should be able to see the PNG. But I had a little bit hard time to actually display the PNG myself, because Google Drive is not providing you like a hard link to the file. It's actually providing you a link that is actually opening Google Drive like interface or something like that. So, but still, if you know how to, there is a way, of course, to do it. But I was not going to dig that into details, as this was only for testing to see how you can get an access to Google Drive using OAuth. And like I said, if you know how you can display this, like I said, there should be a special link that you can modify the link and display. I think you should be able to display the image directly. You can download the image, but I'm not sure if you can display it directly. I think you can. But let me know in the comments below if you can do that. Watch the end of the video, and then let me know if you can modify it, and if you find a way with it. Okay, so that was actually the demo purpose. That was the demo, and let's actually switch to the actual project and see and tell you how I build this. And before actually switching to the demo, to the project that I want to show you how I build it, there is very important thing to set up before that. So first of all, you should go to Google Cloud dashboard, and then select the project from here, from this drop down. Select the project that you want to use. And then in my case over here, I'm using Beta project. You can see it on the top left. And then go to OAuth. So then go to API and services, and then go to OAuth consent screen. And then here, you have to actually create a new app. So in my case over here, this is only a testing app, and I can publish it so everyone can use it. But for this particular case, I'm using a testing app, and I have actually test users. So you can actually, when you're testing this, you can add test users, you can add emails of the test users. And I have already added some emails over here to test it. You cannot see them, but I have added some emails that I want to test. So you can either make it for testing purposes, or you can actually switch that to publish the app when you are done testing. So this is very important first to do that, and then you go to credentials. When you go to credentials, you have to actually create a new credential, OAuth to client ID. And how to do that? Just click on create, and just click on this OAuth client ID. So when you click over it, it is actually you have to see this drop down, and then there are a couple of things to know. So first of all, are you going to create this for web app? Are you going to create this for Android or for iOS? In our particular case, we are going to create this only for web app, but of course you can use Android or iOS, and you have to have a different OAuth for different environments. So keep that in mind. And then I will select a web app. This is the name of your key, and then let me show you what I did in my particular key, so you can actually see how you can set up. My key is FFUP. I'll actually delete this key after the recording of this video, so I hope you don't try to use it, and even if you try, it should not work. And this is the only thing that you need. You need the authentication redirect URL. And in my particular case, the authentication redirect URL is actually the page where it is coming from Google Drive. Sorry, it's coming from Flowflow. And if I switch over here, I have one page called Access, and this is the route to my page. It's called Access. And if I want to know what is the page, I have to actually deploy my project in Flowflow. And when I deploy my project in Flowflow, this is the link that I get from Flowflow. Of course, you can change this link, or you can use your own domain, custom domain over here. Everything works as long as you redirect the page back to your web app. So in my case, I'm redirecting it back to my web app page. So this is very important. This is the one of the most important parts of the puzzle. And then you have this one, and the three things that you need is the redirect URL, which should be legit. It should be working. And then you have the client ID, and then you have the client secret. Great. And when you have all those, you are actually good to go to switch to Flow and build your Flow project. So the first thing that you need to do is actually set up a page that people we are going they are going to open, and when they open it, they are going to give access to your app when they open this page. So if you are actually wondering how I built this page, where this page, not page, but link, where's this link coming from? Yeah, you can actually write in Google, whatever search engine you're using. You can write Google OAuth a reference API, and then the first link for me at least is this link, using OAuth 2.0 for web server applications. And it's actually, you're going to see probably this one, using OAuth 2 for access Google APIs, but then you have to click on the left side when it says for server side web applications, and then go down. So you can actually see you can use this for all those languages which are already built for you. But of course, you can only use API calls. And this is what we are going to do right now. So if you scroll down, you can actually see the first step is set authentication parameters. And if you go down again, this is the URL that we're going to use. And those are the parameters. And you can actually see required, 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 and recommended, recommended, optional, 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 optional. So the ones that are required, that we need to use the client ID, we have that already. The redirect URL, we have that already. The response type, I'll show you what are the response type. And then we have the scope, which is also required, because this is what you want from the user. In our case specifically, we actually will get the Google Drive read-only access. And then we have the access type, which is recommended, and the state, which is recommended. So you can actually read more about it. You can pause this video and read more about it, or you can go to this website and read more about it as well. And if you scroll down actually to step 2, redirect to Google's OAuth 2 server, this is actually a demo link, what the link should look like. So we have the base URL, we have the scope, we have the access type, which is offline. And this is offline because we are actually going to get a refresh token. And we need the refresh token because the access token will expire. So that's why we need the refresh token. So when the access token expires, we are going to use the refresh token to get an access token based on the refresh token. And then we have the include grant scope. Then we have the response type, which is code. Then have the state. We have the redirect URL, and we have the client ID. So how this looks like when you post it over here, when you write it in Flow. So if I switch to Flow, and I have set up a button, and inside this button I have this URL. So to actually show you the URL probably better, let me actually switch to my favorite notepad. So if I switch to my favorite notepad, and if I click on enter over here, so I can actually see better what are my variables, and I have the client ID, I have the redirect URL, I have the scope, which is very important. I have the response code, sorry, the response type, which is code, and then I have the access type, which is offline. And people are actually will wonder, okay, the scope, okay, so this is the client ID, I get it. I get it from the cloud, Google Cloud dashboard. The redirect URL, I get it again from Google, from Flow link, and then I put the page that I'm going to use. And then the scope, what is the scope and where did you get this info? So that's actually a very good question. If you actually write Google Playground API, so let's actually open this page right now. So this is the page that I'm talking about. It's Google developers, and it says OAuth to Playground. And if I, so for example, let's just give an example with I want uh, AdSense management. So I want to access for AdSense management. So if I click on the drop down, you can actually see those links over here, those scopes. Those are the scopes. And you have the AdSense or you have the AdSense read only. And if you want to see it for the Google Drive, those are all the services that Google is providing and that you can actually use. You have to go to Drive API version 3, click on the drop down, and those are all the scopes that are available. So the one that we are going to use today is Drive that read only. This is actually give us access to the files for read only access, and we will not be able to write there. So this is actually the first setup to set up this link. When you set up this link, you can have something like a button, and when this button is clicked, it will actually ask for access to the user to give access to your app. And you can of course use it in on page load, so it could be done automatically, so the user could not be so the user should not actually press on the button. But if a user goes to a page, for example, it will redirect to another page. But it's actually a good practice for the user to click on a button, and it will be like give access to the app for your Google Drive or whatever. And then the user knows that when they click on that, they will actually give access to your application for their Google Drive, for example, to access the files. And then now let's switch to the actual API calls that we need to set up. So the API calls, I'm going to use only 4 API calls, and the API calls, the first API call that I'm going to set up is actually get access and refresh token. So when you actually get access and refresh token, you are the URL is the base URL is this one. It's OAuth to googleapis.com, and then the endpoint is token. The headers is actually content type application for www form URL encoded, and the body is actually you have a bunch of parameters over here. So you have the code, you have the client ID, you have the client secret, you have the redirect URL, and you have the grant type. So you are actually wondering, of course, again, where do we get that? And you get it again from this page, is the same page. And if I scroll down and keep on scrolling, and this is actually step 5. Step 5 is actually how to get an access token, so to get notification for refreshing access tokens. And this is the request. So it's a post request. Make sure to click over here. Make sure to click on HTTP REST, because if you are, for example, in PHP by default, you're actually going to see this. You need to actually see it like that. Great. And then you can actually see we need the code, the client ID, the client secret. We need the redirect URL and the grant type. Great. So we can actually use that. So we need the code, which is the authentication code that we are going to receive from when the user authenticate. So what is the logic behind that? We are going to get it in the details, a little bit details right now. Probably it's a good sign. So when a user authenticate, it will actually go to the access token. And when you go to the access token, the access page, not the token, but the access page, it will actually give us back the identification code, and then we are going to use this identification code to get an access token and a refresh token. And to get that, when this page is visited by the user, it will have actually two parameters. One is the authentication code, and the other, I think, is the scope, which I don't think we needed, but they're giving us back to us. So the access token, I have um, logic behind that, but the most important part is the first action, which is the custom action get page params. I wrote get, it should be get, and we are actually passing the parameters of the get request, and those are code and scope. So if we go to our code, our custom code, we get one custom action, which is get. And now let me actually try to fix that. So we have this only one custom action, which is get page params. And get page params is actually, in my case particularly, is getting two page params, and I don't think you need more than that. And this is the names of the params. So it's code like you saw, it's code and scope. And those are actually, if they change in the future, you can change them, but I don't think that they will change unless you're using still version 2. If you're using version 3, maybe they will change. But what the code is going is actually getting the URL, and then it's getting the actual parameters. So this is the parameter 1, and I'm putting it in the app state. So the app state, it's called auth code, and the other, it's called scope. And this is how we are getting that. So basically, when this page is visited from when user authenticate the page and it is redirected to our app again, we're automatically getting the auth code and the scope. And this is actually how it's get. And then if we go to the API calls again, and let me show you. This is the first API call, and we are passing, actually after that we are passing this code to get the refresh token and access token. And we have the client ID, we have the client secret, and you have the redirect URL. And both three of those are actually coming again from Google Cloud Dashboard. We have all of this information, and it's a static information. So that's why I just put it like that. It's not coming from variable. It's a static information. I put it by default here because this in theory should not change. And then we have the grant type, which is the authentication token. This is very important as well. The grant type is very important. And then we have the variables, and we have only one variable, which is auth code, which this code we're going to pass. And then this is the first API call. It's a post. I forgot to mention that, but you probably saw that. And the other one from the same group is Google OAuth is actually how to get an access token based on the refresh token. And again, we have this the headers is content type form URL encoded, and then we have the body, and then inside the body we have again the client ID, client secret, and then this type, the grant type, is actually a refresh token. It's not what it was before. I think it was authentication code or something like that. But in this case, it's refresh token because we're passing refresh token in order to get an access token. And then we have the refresh token. Us again, don't mix those two. This is what we are going to pass, but this is what we're actually passing. So we're actually passing a refresh token, and it's coming from variable. When we go to variables, and when you click on refresh token, this is the refresh token that we're going to pass. And I'm actually saving the refresh token in my app state, and I'm making persistent. So even if the page is even if the page is closed, I'm still keeping the refresh token. And this is how I am going. This is how I'm doing it. But of course, you can do it other ways as well. You can save the refresh token in your database or however you prefer. It's works best for you. And this is actually the second API call. And the third API call is actually now we should get the data from Google Drive. And getting the data from Google Drive, it's super easy. You just need the link. And if you're just wondering again, where do you get this link from? Just write Google Drive, and then write reference API. So just write Google Drive reference API, like I said, and then you can switch over here, and then you can actually have something like this. You should be able to see something like this. And then on the left side, you have manage folders, for example, and you have like upload file. But in our case, we are not going to upload files because we have only read access. We don't have write access. We only have read access. But we have something like search for files and folders, for example, and we have like a lot of examples over here how we can do that. And then if I switch back to my API call, this is the base URL. It's googleapis.com, and then you have Drive, and then you have the version 3, and you have files, and then we're passing the file ID, and then we're passing all the fields that we want. So in technically, without passing any fields, we're going to get the kind, the method type, the ID, and the name. But because we need the web view link, and the web view link is actually going to give you like a link that you can share with your users, that when they click, they're actually going to view the actual file. So that's why I need the web view link as well. And then, of course, we need the access token because the headers is authentication bear access token. And for the query parameters, we don't have anything. And for variables, we have the access token and we have the field ID. The file ID, not the field, but the file ID. Great, and this is the third API call, and the fourth API call is again the same. It's a GET request. It is files this way. It is actually the same files, but this one is passing only the ID of the files, which means it's only returning one file. But here, search for files. This will actually return all the files out there. And then I have notification headers is the same. We can actually move those certification headers to the base, to the define API group. But I tried to do that, but when there is a variable, it was not working good for me. So that's why I move it here into the individual API call definition. And then we have the query parameters. So the query parameters is very important. We have the queue, which is actually we are searching for the files. That's why I call it search. The variable name I call it search. and then we have the fields that we want to get. Like in this case, I'm getting the ID and the name, but of course you can get other fields as well. And then this is very important for me, we have the trash. So the trash is actually, in my case, is false, which means that I'm going to only return files from my Google Drive which are not in the trash bin. This is very important because previously when I was using Google Drive, I was getting files that I was thinking, I don't have those files in my Google Drive, what is going on? And then it turned out that those files actually was trashed. So that's why I'm not going to return trash files. Of course, if you want to return trash files, just make this true. And it's actually true by default. If you don't pass this, it will be trashed true by default. By default. And then we have the variables, and the variables is access token. We're passing the access token, and we're passing the search and what we're searching for. And the search is a little bit complicated, but we're going to talk about this right now. I think right now it's a good time to talk about the actual search. And let me actually switch you, and let's talk about a little bit how I set up the pages, and we're going to talk about the search then. So let me go into show you how I set up my pages. So this is a very simple page. I put it a version here. Of course, you can delete that, but I put it a version because every time when I deploy it, am trying to change this version so I can see that I'm actually running the latest version, because this is very important. And the other important thing that I forgot to mention is about the API calls. It's very important to know that you cannot test your API call over here in Flow, or you cannot use Postman or Insomnia or whatever REST client you're using. You cannot use that. You cannot test it like that. It will actually give you an error every time. I was like fighting for this like a lot of hours to actually finally ask a friend of mine, Josh, from Flex Experts. I asked him, and he actually pointed me in the right direction. And he told me that you cannot do that. I don't know why. He didn't know why as well, but unfortunately, this is the case. And if you want to actually see me struggling through that, I forgot to mention that as well. I made a Flow Quest, my live show, which is the 4th episode. And I actually have 3 parts from this because of this error or this issue that I had. I have the Google Drive part 1, part 2, and part 3. And actually, you can actually sum those. Those are 4 hours and a half, almost 5 hours of me struggling to get this work. And it was actually very important. Like I told you, this should be only tested inside Flow. You have to deploy your project in Flow for the web and then test it. Like I said, unfortunately, you cannot test the first 2 of those API calls. You cannot test them over here. You can test those 2 API calls. You can test them, but those 2 you cannot test them. This is very important. That's why I wanted to say this one more time, because it's very important to know that. And now let's switch to actually show you how I set up my pages. So my pages are actually, I only have 3 pages. I have the home page, which is my home page, and I have only one button, like I said, and the version. And on my load action, on my scaffold widget, on my load action, I have this. I have a few actions. So the first action is access token. I'm just checking if the access token is set or not. Access token is actually coming from the app state, and I'm just checking if I have an access token or not. If my page is first loaded from one user, I will not have an access token. Access token will be blank or empty, and that's why it will actually go to the false direction. and then it will not going to do anything because the user has to authenticate in this case. In this case, the user has to click on this button and then go through the process of authentication, authenticate itself. But if actually the user has done that already, it will actually go to the true. And when it goes to the true, I will actually check if the access token has expired or not. Because if the access token has expired, I have to I have to get a new access token based on the refresh token. So this is what I'm getting. That's why I have this get file data. And get file data, I showed you the API is actually getting a single file based on the file ID. So you can actually, in my case over here, or in your case, you can actually supply the access token based on the app state, and then we supply the file. And we just supply, I just supply a random ID file from my Google Drive that I want to display and just want to get and see if I get a successful result. And then if I get a successful result, that means that my access token is actually working. And that's why I'm redirecting to Google Drive, because the Google Drive is actually where I am using my Google Drive page and API calls to get files. Like I showed you at the beginning, search for files, get folders, search for folders, get what are the files inside the folder, and so on and so forth. But for some reason, if the access token is not working, I will get false. So I will end up in the false path, and then I will have to run a new API call. And this API call will be get access from refresh token, and then I will pass the refresh token, which is again coming from the API call. Another important thing, it's very important thing, I'm forgetting to say this, but it's very important to not forget to say this in this video, is that the refresh token is only be available to you when the user first authenticate with your app. So when the user first authenticate with your app, the refresh token will be shown, or will be you'll get a response of you'll get a response from the of access token and refresh token. But if you try to authenticate again, it will actually not give you a refresh token. So that's very important. I was struggling with that as well when I was trying to find how to get the Google Auth working. But I didn't know that. So if you want to actually get a new refresh token, you have to just delete the app from your Google profile. Just go to your Google profile, third parties, applications, access, delete the access from there, and then re-authenticate your access to the app, and then you get a refresh token. This is very important, like I said, to get the refresh token, because I was wondering why I'm not getting a refresh token. That's why you're getting it only in the first place. And then I'm putting this in the app state. And then when I put this in the app state, I'm using the one from the app state. And then if it's successful, I'm putting the new access token inside the app state, and then I'm redirecting this. So let me just show you what I mean. The result of this one will be access token. And then if I click over here, I'm getting this from action output access token, and then this is the path to my JSON. This is my JSON path. And then the last thing again is redirect the page to Google Drive. So this is my action flow. It's very simple. Like I said, if you don't have an access token, if you have an access token, check if the access token works. And if it doesn't work, get a new access token and refresh to this page. Great. So this is the page. And of course, I have a button and I have the URL, which I already showed you, which is the first thing that the user they're going to see. And when the user actually click on this link, they will actually be redirected to a page where they have to authenticate themselves. And then when they do that, they're going to go back to this page, which is actually in the URL itself, which is in the URL. It says redirect URL, and this is the redirect URL, and this is I supply the access as my path to the page, and this is my access page. And let me show you what I have in my access page. So if I click on the scaffold widget on page load actions, so the first action, like I showed you, is the get page parameters. And I'm getting the page parameters of code and scope. Those are going to supply from Google. So that's why I'm going to get them. If I don't have those parameters, I will actually go over here and I'm going to show in the snack bar, I'm going to show something like no code parameter in URL query, which means that this page was opened like directly and not from the Google Drive authentication. And then I have actually, when this is true, I'm going to send an API code to Google Drive. And I'm going to pass only the auth code, which is I'm going to save it in the app state. Of course, you don't need to save it in the app state, but this is what I'm going to do because I'm saving it in my code actually over here because this is a custom action. I'm saving the old code in my app state, and that's why I'm using it over here from my app state. And this will actually return tokens. And if everything is successful, I'm going to again save those tokens in my app state. So this is coming from action output tokens, and then the path name is access the underscore token, and the other one is the same thing, but this time it's refresh underscore token. So this is actually going to put my access token and refresh token in my app state for later to use. And the last thing that I have is I'm putting my refresh token over here just to see if I'm getting something. But of course, you can delete this. You don't need this. This is only for debugging purposes. And then the last thing that you need to do is redirect to the page that you want to actually show the data, or you can show the data over here. I just do it like that. Or you can have something like when you get this data, the last thing over here will be to redirect. For example, I can actually redirect this page to or navigate this page to Google Drive. I can do that as well. So people should not be able to. People should not click on this button. Great. So when they click on this button, when they authenticate themselves in Google Drive, in Google, sorry, not Google Drive, but in Google, they will go to this page. It will save the access token, the refresh token on app state, and then to automatically redirect to this page. So this page right here have a few things in it. So the first thing is I have an API call which is actually running the get file data again. And I'm using the access token again, which is coming from the app state. And then I'm using the file ID, which like I said, I'm using a random file ID, which is the same actually that I was using in the homepage. And this I'm doing that. The only reason I'm doing that is just when I load this page, I want to see if I have access to Google Drive or not. And I'm actually storing this info over here. I'm getting the ID of the file based on the response of the API call from my scaffold, which is the first widget. I'm getting the ID, I'm getting the name, and I'm getting the kind. So this will actually, like I told you, this will give me this will give me knowledge if I have access to Google Drive or not. And then when I click on the search, is actually this normal text field. But when I click on the search, I will run another API call, and this time is search for files. I will pass the access token, which is coming from the app state, and I'll pass the search. So this is very important, the search part over here. So when I click on the search part, there are a couple of things that I'm passing over here. So let me actually open this in the notepad, and let me actually show you how this looks like, so you can actually see it better visually. So I'm passing the meme type is actually application VND Google Apps folder. That's because I'm only searching for folders, and I have this and name contains, and then I have the query, uh, and then I'm passing the actual name that I'm searching for. In my case, I can search for FF like I showed you in the demo or whatever. And then you have to close the quotes. Don't forget to close the quotes because this is very important as well. And then you can confirm it. So you, at the end of the day, you have something like this. You have something like this. This will be what you have to pass. But this text is coming from my text field. Great. And then if this API call is successful, I'm going to update files. So files is actually coming from my page state. So I have app states in this page, and I have three app states. So the first app state is searched files. Then I have files in folder result. And then the last one is chief drive image. And both of two actually are JSON data type, and it's list. So this one is JSON data type list. This one is JSON data type list. This one is image path. And I am actually the result that is coming from this API call. I'm putting it inside an app state called searched files, and I'm doing that to actually refresh or rebuild the widgets dynamically because I'm using app states. And the result is actually coming from the action output, and it's coming from the path. It's $files. And then I'm actually using those files over here in my list view, and it's actually this one, it's empty. It's backend query, it's empty because I already have my data. So I'm using the app state search files, and then I'm using the individual file. And then I have a row, and inside this row I'm listing the name, which is dot name, and I have dot ID. And when this row is clicked, I have another action, and this action is actually, this time I'm searching for files again, but this time my search query, it's a little bit different. I have combined text, and my combined text is actually again a quote, and then this one is $ID, and then in parents. So what is this? How this looks like? Let me just show you again over here. So this one will be the ID of the folder, and it says in parents. And if I have this in my search criteria, that means that I will only show files that are inside this folder, that the parent folder is the ID of the parent folder. So I need to pass the ID of the folder. And then this will list me all the files inside the folder. Great. And then I have this files in folder. Again, this is page state. It's a list of JSONs. And again, I'm passing this from the action output. Files in folder is the name of my action output. And I'm passing it that in $sign that files. And this, I'm using the same strategy. I have list view. This is empty. This is generate dynamic children, and I have this is coming from the app state files in folder result. Then I have the file, the actual file, and then I have the same thing like the name. I'm passing the name, and I'm passing the ID. And when a row is clicked, this is where I'm going to try to get the file, the individual file, and this is get file data. Access token is coming from the app state. File ID is actually coming from the JSON path ID file. And this is actually coming from the individual file that is coming actually from this list. So it's coming from the individual file from this list over here. So I can actually show you how this looks like. So if I click on the pencil over here, this is item, file item, and then it's ID. And I'll cancel that. I don't want to change it. And then here I have this, I'm passing this G Drive image, and I'm passing actually the web view link. And web view link actually is going to give me a result of the image. And I can actually show you how this looks like. So let me just show you how this looks like. If I click on the image, I will get a response of yeah, my authentication code actually expired. Let me just refresh it real quickly. So let me actually show you how I can do that. So if I go to my page, now it says my access token is expired, and you can actually see from here, no, 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 no. And actually can go visit my home page over here. And when I visit my home page, it should actually refresh the access token based on the refresh token. And I should go to the Google Drive page again and have my new access token. And it's working. As you can actually see over here, that is working. And then if I write FF, I'm going to get this folder, which is FF demo. And if I click over it, I'm going to get this Bella. So I want to actually show you what is the result of web view link. So that's why you see the screen right now like that, because I opened the DevTools inside the network. But if I open the DevTools, and this is actually, you can actually see how it looks like, and this is how it looks like. And this is actually not, unfortunately, this is not an image, like a direct image path. This is inside, still, this is inside Google Drive. So that's why I said in the beginning, not in the beginning, but that's why I said in the video that I was not able to actually find a direct link. How can I generate a direct link to the image? So if I have a direct link to the image, then I will be able to actually display the image in Thunderflow or a PDF file or whatever file that you want to use. And this is actually Bella. If you're wondering who is that, this is actually Bella, and she is the guide of our Thunderflow quests. So if you haven't watched Flow Quests already, you are free to do that. There are live sessions that I do when I try to find a way. For example, the last episode was the time of this recording, of course, is for me getting to work Google Drive as expected. So this is actually the workflow of the page. I have this image, which is only shown when there is where there's an image. But like I said, unfortunately, I cannot make it to work right now to find the actual path to the actual image. And like I said, if you know how I can do that, let me know in the comments. Based on the, of course, based on the, I mean, I know how I can get it. I know how I can get this URL, but I don't see actually the I don't see what is the connection between this URL and the web view one. So if I put this URL over here, should be able to see the image, and exactly I'm seeing the image, but like I said, I don't see the correlation between the two, not yet. At least I was not digging into it. So if you can, if you know what it is, let me know. And of course, probably it's better to see the whole image like that. Yeah, exactly. Great. So that's about it. I have this action over here is just going back to the access page in case I need it. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think I covered everything out there. There is only one new custom function, which is only converting actually the string to image path. But I can change that to say something like convert string to image, and then I can save it, of course, and then I can save this code and compile it. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. But before you go, I just want to let you know that I set up a Discord channel, which will be for my 3,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for everyone who subscribed to the channel. The Discord channel will be officially announced when I reach the 3,000 subscribers. Uh, it is well structured. It will be well structured with the general tab, which you can see the info, the news, and we will have also click to talk, so you can actually talk to other members of the channel. And we have the YouTube videos as well, where you can see all the YouTube videos. You can also have, if you want to, if you want to request a video, you can go to video requests, and then we have the paid members from YouTube, which they have a separate channel where they can talk. I also have from the mentoring sessions, we have the paid members. And then it's structured by backend for the Flow API calls, Superbase, SQLite. And then you have the design, where you can ask design questions. We have the custom code, which is code expressions, custom functions, custom widgets, custom actions. And for the Flow source code, we can talk about the Flow source code as well. And we have integrations as well, pub dev packages, platforms, if you want to integrate different platforms. We have the general integrations. And then we have, you don't see it from my face, but we have also the settings. We have the dynamic links, we have the push notifications, we have the app settings, we have the Android deployment, we have the iOS deployment, and we have the web deployment. And the last thing that we have is actually we have the languages, and we have other languages. So we have like Swedish, for example, Spanish, Portuguese, other languages that people from those countries or those languages can talk in their own language. So yeah, like I said, thank you very much for all the subscribers. And before you go, I just want to say that the paid membership for YouTube is now open. So you can be a paid member to my YouTube channel, which means a lot. And thank you very much for all the people who are right now paid members to the channel.